Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Hey, you guys. How are y'all doing? Happy Saturday. So I checked my emails and had an email from Lady Di here in chat about page 27. This is where the narrative that we have known from, I mean, for a while now, but definitely from January when the transcripts for the January session came out when Brett Payne was talked to by Ann Taylor on the stand about the 1219 phone call when it comes to Bryan. Now, I went through the documents when it comes to these forensic evidence receipts, and I'm sort of understanding the way that they are categorizing them and the way that they are sort of like stacking the information on as they're getting it with the dates that things are being received. I can't really explain away why his name is showing up as a suspect on 12/5/22 for the evidence that they got. There is a portion that says something about 12/5/22's evidence being added on to a previous document. But my problem with that, not only is there no specifics on it, but if that was the case and the redacted name for suspect was where Bryan Kohberger's name was supposed to have gone, because now they have the result and they are now like moving the information to make sense, it should be there in its place and not underneath it with the top line still being a redacted suspect name. So that's why it's confusing. I can't explain it away. We're going to look at it live all the way through and see the way that they're stacking and maybe what it could have come from. Because another thing I noticed is that on the 12/5/22 receipt, it's like cheek swabs and like swabs of other things and nothing to do with the K-bar. The suspect that's blanked out that stays on line number 1 stays there after the K-bar information is already accessed on the 17th. But that also doesn't make sense because Othram sent their stuff back on the 12th, and then the FBI, I mean, on the 10th, on December the 10th, and the FBI didn't do anything with anything until like the 10th forward. So the 5th and the way that they're putting it in here, I don't know. We're going to look at it and see if we can come up with whatever this is, because we also have the transcript of Brett Payne, who's already been told to lie before. So now we got to take this with an even bigger grain of salt than before. But 1219 is when Moscow PD heard his name. I have a problem with that because the documentation says that Blaker is the one from Moscow Police Department that sent the information over. I also have an issue with that because Payne is supposed to be the lead investigator, but Blaker's name and Blaker have like a lot to do with a lot of other things too. And he's never really been, as far as I know, labeled anything specific. But he's also the one that took the sample down to Houston, and we're still waiting on those documents. So we're going to look at all of this. I'm going to show you page 27 that she showed me. Then we're going to jump up to the beginning and go all the way down until we get to the end of all of the receipts. We're going to start, let me, hold on. Eek. Okay. We're going to start with the transcript first. We're going to start with, I'm going to preface this video, or I'm going to preface this statement with what we were told by Brett Payne, because I can't figure out why his name is on a document with a receipt of 12/5. For the other stuff, when it came to the Moscow Police Department documents, we were able to tell that his name was added as a suspect because those documents were being either written, like the situation wasn't taking place at the same time or the same date that the report is for. A lot of them were being written after his arrest. So that was able to tell, but these are not the same. These are different. And I can't explain it away. The same thing I told Lady Di. I can't explain this away, so we're going to have to just go over it and see what we can see. Because, again, if he was the name that was supposed to be where the suspect 1 is that's redacted, why isn't his name in that thing's place? Okay, this is like getting on my nerves. I'm trying to fix this. Okay. Why isn't it in that redacted name's place instead of his name being now listed as like a secondary? And I'm also going to show you guys the rule. Do you remember, for those of you that have been in here for a while, this is not going to sound like brand new to you. Okay. This is going to be very like, oh yeah, we've talked about this. We've talked about this in videos. We've talked about this 1,000 a million times. Okay. The ICR rules that they cite. Okay. Now I know that my degree is 1,000 years old and I don't like remember a lot of anything, but I do remember citation rules. When you are citing something, you never want to include something that has nothing to do or is not relevant to what you are citing. So when these ICR rules have been cited over and over and over and over and over again, I've always questioned why they're being written 16:1 through 8 instead of 1,3-8, because number 2 has to do with a freaking co-defendant. This is not new to you guys. So when I'm seeing Bryan Kohberger's name listed like that, it's making me question. It's making me question that. So let me show you the document first, and then we'll go back and start the way that I want to start, okay? This is the document right here. This is page 27, and it's dated, date received, 12/5/22, okay? For reference, you're going to hear my kid. It's Saturday. He's playing a video game. His door is shut. But he's a big, manly-looking kid, so he's loud, and it just is what it is. Okay, so here's where it says suspect first, okay? Suspect is checked. The name is redacted, all right? And this is from 12/5/22 as well. But you're going to see that it's like that from all of the receipts after the knife sheath, okay? Suspect, receipt, 11/28, all right? Suspect, receipt, 11/22. Suspect, 11/21. And then we have suspect again for 11/18. Now we're going to have just the victims' names for 11/16. And the only thing that they received from 11/16 was the K-bar. Okay. So after they got this K-bar, they then have a suspect with a blanked out name. But then you go to page 27 after they've received more information. And now we have the blanked out name with Bryan Kohberger now listed secondary on 12/5/2022. If his name is being listed as a secondary for 12/5/2022, there's really only like 2 things in my mind that this could mean. That they lied to us about when they actually did get the information because they would have known about him before 12/19, because this is all being signed off on by Blaker, okay? Now, she did ask specifically Brett Payne. But the questions that she asks and the way that she asks it makes it seem as if there was nothing in there. Plus, they've said this also in court before. There's nothing in any tips received on 12/19/22 that they've gone back in and tracked everything. They never got anything from WSU. Remember the parking thing, the love sheets or whatever that had all the cars on it from that night? They looked in the system and then they saw the car in the parking lot, all right? That was never sent over to the police, and they've told us this themselves because Kohberger's vehicle did not match what they were looking for. They pulled him up. They saw his information in the system, but they never sent it over to the police. So even though the date of that was what, 11/29? Was that 11/29? It's been so long since I looked at it. I think it was 11/29. They never sent it over. So even that tip was not in the system prior to 12/19/22. So either they lied about that, or Bryan Kohberger's DNA is showing up somewhere else besides the knife sheath. Because the way that they have this listed as if the blanked out name is DNA that came from the knife sheath, because the knife sheath was the first thing that was received. I can't figure any other way to look at that. So when we go to the rule, and we're going to come back and I'm going to read this here in just a second, what Brett Payne said. I'm just talking because it's like, I'm really trying to figure this out. So I'm just yapping my mouth off, and then we're going to go over all the stuff. If you look at the rule, this is the one that I've been talking about forever now. Okay. And a buddy of mine who does talk to some people inside of these types of organizations had heard previously that they did have his name somewhere prior, but he was never told how. He never was told what agency. He was just told it's somewhere in there. Well, now we see, I guess, where the somewhere in there is. I probably should call him later. Okay, well, this is the rule right here that I've been talking about. Idaho Criminal Rule 16, Discovery and Inspection. If you go down to B, for disclosure of evidence and materials by the prosecution on written request, they never remove number 2. It is listed as 1-8 down to police reports. Stops there. They never remove number 2. And number 2 is about a co-defendant. I've said this. Again, there's a whole video out there that I did just on this because it was a question that I've always had. Statement of a co-defendant. On written request of a defendant, the prosecuting attorney must permit the defendant to inspect and copy or photograph and basically all the information. Why would they still cite it like that? Why wouldn't it be 1,3-8? It matters. Citations are important. You can literally fail your entire paper because your citations are incorrect if the professor wants to really be a douchebag. So they're extremely important. There's like extreme formatting and strictness to this shit for a reason. So for it to be like that in so many documents and number 2 still be in there has been a question that I've had for a very, 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 very long time. So now we're going to go and read what Payne said so that we can look at the exact wording from the SOSE lead investigator, who also was the one who was going to tell the IGG lie and was also going to be deputized in as a made-up position that had to be created just for him in the situation after no longer working for Moscow Police Department to go and do a non-law enforcement position at the University of Idaho. Payne has his little bald head and all kinds of things in this case. Whew, okay. One day he's going to have to just tell his story. I want to know. I want to know. Okay. Let's see. Let's start from right here. And let me give you all the link. This is the transcript to the session that happened in January that was a closed hearing where Matthew Gamet is the one who says a Boise officer and him went down to Othram. That's the information from him I'm still waiting for. That's what he means in the email that I read to you guys last night about how we know that you're requesting other information, we're still getting it together. So that's going to be good. I know there's some information about that like in these documents, but I'm still waiting for other information from him. At least I've seen something about it like is being talked about in these documents, but it's still not specific. And I still find it really strange that Blaker is still like in nothing mentioning how somebody else was with him. Like, why are we not talking about that? Why is that such a secret? And I still have so many questions as to why the police officer was the one that was allowed to keep the sample the entire trip and not the actual scientist who was still like part of the police department. Like, why was Matthew not the one in control of the evidence for that entire ride? I find that strange. That's just me. That's just me. Okay. This is what was said between Brett Payne and Ann Taylor in January for the closed session. In the course of your responsibilities with Moscow Police, were you handling an investigation involving homicides at 1122 King Road? Yes, ma'am. What was your role? I was assigned lead detective after about the first 24 hours. And remember, they are putting it all on him for finding the sheath. And this isn't an assumption. And it's not just because of the difference in wording in him and Blaker's damn copy and paste freaking PCAs. Dollinger himself, who is now the chief of police, has come out in an interview and said it in an interview. I think this is the part you can't quote me on. Brian Eaton from Idaho News, East Idaho News. I think that was the interview. For sure, it was in an interview. We done went through it. There's a clip on my channel of it somewhere. He puts that responsibility on Brett Payne. But Blaker's reports and the reports of him picking up like the vial for all the stuff, it all alludes to ISP being the ones who actually found the knife sheath. So that's why we're still trying to find clarification on all of that. So keep that in mind when we hear, if you are new to this information, which most of my people are not, that he was assigned lead detective after the first 24 hours of the most important thing that this place has ever seen in their entire lives. Okay. A rookie, like a literal, not very long at all doing this job type of person. He was literally just like a traffic cop months before this, pulling over people for headlight issues. Okay. And does that mean that you have responsibility for the case and evidence? He says, yes, ma'am. She says, okay, as such, did you participate in a search for a suspect? He says, yes, ma'am. And when was the first time you heard Bryan Kohberger's name? The first time I heard Bryan Kohberger's name was December 19th, 2022. She then asks, what was that a result of? He says, that was a result of investigative genetic genealogy that was being undertaken by the FBI. We had a phone call that evening and we were told Bryan Kohberger's name. And before that was Mr. Kohberger was not on your radar? No, ma'am. Before December 19th, was the FBI cast team member collated with you? Yes, ma'am. And that's where that part's going to stop, which means that the people that were doing all the cast work, in case you don't know this, they were all sharing the same floor of the Moscow Police Department. The feds and the cops were all there together. So if somehow the feds were circulating a name, and if somehow ISP was circulating a name, I don't know how the frick Moscow wouldn't have heard the name. That's why the dates of this is so weird, because it goes against what we've been told. Okay? So then we have this. By the time it was December 19th and you first heard Bryan Kohberger's name, had you reviewed any videotapes? Yes. He reviewed hours and hours and hours of videotapes, looked at all kinds of things, gone through all kinds of tips, all kinds of reports. This dude's name was nowhere. Nowhere. They don't even have any specifics. This is also where he mentions how they didn't really pay much attention to a front license plate until after Kohberger's name. But I also question that because there is a portion somewhere where they do mention something about a plate in some of these documents. I just have to go back and actually find it, but it is there. So we're going to acknowledge the fact that it's there. But this is what we were told, 12/19/2022. That's been said in court about 1,500 freaking times. Well, not really, but it's been said in court too. It's been the discussion. No one has ever come out and said, like, no, this is not correct. This is actually whenever he was on people's radar. There's been none of this, okay? None of this at all. So when these documents come out and they have his name on something that they received on 12/5/22, I have 1,000 questions. I have 1,000 questions. Oh, well, look, here you are too. Okay, bye. So we're going to go ahead and start from the very top of this, like I said, and see if we can see anything other than somebody's not being honest about something and something's not right here, because what is also missing in the documents that we've gone over so far? Nothing about any swabs being taken from the damn button. It has been the button snap this entire freaking time. The entire time. And now it's a piece from the inside of the strap, where it's like the rough side of the strap that actually leads to the snap. And then the inside crevice where the snap actually, like, not the snap, my God, where the strap loops back through the handle. There was something called trace DNA on both of those on the inside. Nothing about the button itself. Nothing. So many things that they've been telling us from the beginning. The documents come out and they're just like allowed to use the incorrect verbiage in court. Both sides are allowed to just use the incorrect stuff because there's nothing about the button. Those are not the spots. They're not pointing at the damn button. And they have been saying that it was on the inside of the button, which has always made it like really strange. Like the bottom piece that has the pokey up part. It's like inside there. It's how they've like described it, I think. Or something like literally like on the inside of the button itself. Not the strap and not where the strap meets the handle. Because we've discussed the brass. We've discussed how there's degradation when it comes to DNA and brass. And if it's painted over, then those chemicals do its own thing. We've discussed this before. We were discussing it because they told us it was the damn button. They didn't tell us anything about it being from the leather strap itself. All of that matters. Yes. Specifically about the snap. Specifically. That part. Yes. Which would make you, you know what, let's just pull it up. Because, damn it. Okay. Male and female parts of snap button. Let's see if it actually shows me like a little diagrammy thingy. I want a diagrammy thingy. This over here. well, is it the part that they call the stud? I'm guessing it's the part with the piece sticking out. If you want to think about like human anatomy, that would be the part that has like, that's called the male part. So it would be like the piece that sticks up, that snaps into like the part that has the conclave. You know what I mean? So why are we not seeing that reflected in the photos? Why are we not seeing that reflected in where they actually took the DNA from? It's on the damn strap. It's on the leather. Well, now you're getting blocked because you don't know how to just go away and go handle your own life, bro. No one's keeping you here, you loser. I just don't understand. Like, why are we not seeing something saying that they actually swabbed the button? Okay. Regardless, this is an index for what we're about to go through. The same way that the Moscow Police Department dropped all those damn supplemental narratives, and the very, very first one was like 100 and something, I think, pages long, and it had an index for the officers, for the photos that were taken, everything's evidence number with the dates that it was like put in the system. That's pretty much what these first few documents are. And notice at the top, what do you see? A redacted name above Bryan Kohberger's name. We already know from what I showed you before that this is going to be that original suspect's name that they've got above Bryan Kohberger's name. Why is it sitting above Bryan Kohberger's name? If he's your only suspect and he's the only person that you think did this, why is his not A, the only name there, but B, he's the one in jail? So why isn't his name the top? It's very, very freaking strange the way that this looks. Hey there, Nelly. How you doing? Thank you for being here. Yeah, I was hoping that some of you guys that are normally not able to get into the lives were be able to jump into this one because it was a little bit earlier. Hey, Nomadic Duck Man, thank you for joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's my problem. They should not have a black one above Bryan's, especially not when it comes to where there's boxes saying that the other person is also considered a damn suspect. And we also know what? That there was a lead before 12/19, that as soon as they got the call, they shelved it. And then after they got the information from the feds about Bryan, they then got more information about the other unknown male DNA, and they shelved that shit too. See, and that's what some people are questioning, if this is Brent Kopacka. But I don't know, because I haven't seen anything unredacted that made me go that way, except for the documents that I got from Pullman that shows that there was a knife at the Coffee House Apartments. But I still haven't been able to go in and dig through all of that with a fine-tooth comb either, because we keep getting a plethora of information in all the freaking time. So there's still so many things we have to go in and try to like pick at and see, okay, do we keep this here? Or can we now take this Post-it note away and toss it in the trash? It's just so much. It's just so much. And that's another thing. I said this last night. They sat there with the jury instructions that the state is the only one who put a narrative in for about it being trace DNA, and told the jury, if you hear trace DNA or anything that alludes to like that kind of DNA, ignore it. But everything from ISP and all of these documents, when it comes to what they're showing us, the way they're labeling it on pictures of the knife sheath itself, says trace DNA. So you're trying to tell me that you were going to submit these damn photos from the damn forensic team who worked on the damn case that says trace DNA on the picture of the sheath found at the crime scene, and then tell the jury, don't pretend like you don't see that word written on there from 3 years ago? How is that going to work? How is that going to work? I don't understand. Okay. Let's start going through this now. A lot of this is redacted because it's like associates, other people that they got DNA and stuff for. It's Jack Decor, Jack Showalter, the roommates, people like that. And then, of course, we have the victims' names. This is an index of when things were submitted over to ISP. This first one right here, as you can see, is when they got the knife sheath. These dates are going to correlate with the other documents that we just went over to show you, like how the suspect names were like written down in there. Now, this is interesting, and I don't know exactly which piece of evidence this is just yet, because it is something that's being talked about like after 12/5, as far as I can tell, something about it not having initials when it got there, even though it didn't look tampered with, but I'm still going to go in. I have it written down to like go in and figure out what all that stuff is. And it also says like how it got there, whether it was an agency courier, hand delivered, or if it came in through the mail. And then this is their lab numbers for how everything was listed. See right here. This is where I'm not really quite sure what this part was, because the only things that we saw on the papers is like the 1 point. So I need to go back and see what portion of it they're considering like the full number 1, because there was no picture that showed that whatsoever on there, literally at all. And then you see the DNA extracts, because there was multiple different DNAs that were taken. That's why it's points, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. But this is, again, just an index of things with very, very, very vague descriptions, but along with the numbers that are used whenever they're talking about the way that things were tested, just so that you can go back in and reference what was being discussed. What's most important in all of these receipts are when the receipts themselves start the way that I showed you that has the dates. I am going to show you this one thing. Okay, right here. This is something else that I need to go back in and do like a cross-referencing thing for. That's why that index is going to be important to a certain degree, because it does show when things were like, no new testing was needed, or these items are no longer needed. Remaining items need permission to consume. Those are those emails that we went through yesterday, or where it says no longer required per the prosecutor, or like different little things, stuff about the pretrial meeting. I want to know specifically what evidence item this is referring to. So I want to go back in and do the cross-reference for that. This is where I'm really questioning the way that it's written. So you see how it says here, additional evidence added to previous assignment, and it says 12/5/22, and it's listed 3 times. Well, that's because they have multiple things that got to them on 12/5/22. But it doesn't tell you where it was moved to, what it was, or anything like that. And the reason why I'm still questioning if maybe it came in, like the result came in, and they went in and added it to additional information, and I don't, like, I'm questioning if that's the possibility, but not really thinking that's what it is, because like I said, his name should be taking place of that original redacted name. If once they have a result, they're going in and plugging it in where it needed to be plugged in. And that's not the case. It's not being plugged in. It's being added, and there's still an original line for there being a first suspect that stays there the entire time. So now we're going to get into these receipts. Okay, this is 11/16/22. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Oh, perfect. Okay, so this is 11/16/22. Dustin Blaker is the one who's the investigating officer. I didn't see Payne's name on any of this stuff. And Payne's PCA, I think, is the only one that we saw. Well, not I think. I know for a fact it was the only one that we saw in Idaho when they released it. And Blaker's PCA is the one that got sent over state lines to Washington for a bunch of stuff. I'm pretty sure his is also the one in Pennsylvania, but it's been a super long time since I checked, so don't quote me on that. It could be Payne's. But Blaker's has been like the one used for search warrants, all kind of shit. So I just question if the spotlight's being put on Payne because he's a rookie, because Mr. Over 20 years here is really the one responsible for some stupidity. I don't know. You know, it's just up in the air. That's why I'm trying to get more information. But again, this is 11/16/22. This is them only having the victims' names on here, with the K-bar sheath being what they got in on the 16th. We've gone through that extensively. We're still waiting on the information from the 13th to the 16th from MPD. We move to 11/18/22, and all of a sudden we have a suspect marking. Now, this matters because when it comes to the information that we went through last night, 11/17/22 is when they started pulling DNA and working on the knife sheath. That's when it started. And this would be the day after. So if they've already pulled information and now they have a redacted suspect name, okay, I'll give you that. But you also have 2 other subjects. I'm going to assume that this is Dylan and Bethany because they're the only other like double that we would most likely see together. And what else is important here is what was sent in. See how this says swab of front strap? This was sent in, I guess, like put into the system for them to do the exam. And then they have like stuff from the bedroom floor, from F2, which is, again, we need to go into like look at what they're considering that, because I don't know off the top of my head, but I just know like floor 2, and it says blood. I'm assuming Xana's room. Blood swab taken from floor 3 bedroom. I'm going to assume that means Maddie's room. DNA blood card collected from the autopsy. Right nail clippings from autopsy, but you see how it doesn't say whose. Left nail clippings. We can only assume it was Maddie's, but we really can't because they've got multiples in here. I think maybe everyone's. This might be everybody's. Okay, yeah, everybody's nail clippings and blood cards. Okay. And then we have 2 cheek swabs and then 2 swabs of DNA from 2 completely different people. But we only have 1 additional person added, and it's being labeled. I mean, well, we have the 3 additional people added. But after all those things were then checked out, we have 1 suspect. Okay, 1 suspect. So then we move down to the next time they got it, evidence submission receipt, 11/21/22. We still have the 1 person with the redacted name at the top as a suspect. That has not changed. Neither has the additional subjects. So there's no additional people being added, just additional evidence being added for this specific one. This is where we have the blood swab from above the stairwell, blood swab from upper floor banister, major crime prints for Ethan, Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee, DNA swabs of possible finger/hand and face marks from the window, stain swab from bottom handrail, stair between floor 1 and 2, swab of stains on top edge of half wall floor 2, 6 latent lift cards taken from exterior of south kitchen window. And then we have the next one, which is the next day on 11/22/22, and we still have a blank name listed as a suspect, but now we've moved on and added an additional subject. This is a really short name right here. I wonder if this is Jack Ducour, because it's really short. I don't know. It's just an assumption. Okay, so then we go on to what was, oh no, that would be, oh, you know what? I can't say I actually know who the frick that would be. I don't remember. I don't think we ever found out whose cigarette butts were actually found like at the scene. A cigarette butt found bottom of entryway stair next to where subject's right foot was. Okay, yeah, this was the surveillance. Okay, yeah, this was the surveilling that they did. These are the cigarette butts that they did to try to figure out if this person's DNA was at the scene. This might have been the guy from, you know, I don't think I ever figured out who this was. And I don't really want to assume who it was if they really didn't have anything to do with anything. All I know is that the report said that they were surveilling this person, watching him leave his house a bunch, go down to the gas station and back, stuff with his mom and his brother at some point. See, I don't know if that's it because they wouldn't have even known anything about that, I don't think. I'd have to go back in and read it again. I'm just not really quite sure. That's why I don't want to just like say who I think it is, because I'm just not really quite sure. But I remember reading in the reports something about like them watching him put it out right next to his foot. And then it says cigarette butt found in right corner where walkway meets bottom stair. So I'm going to assume that there was like a cigarette butt inside the house that they compared it to. Maybe. That's sort of like how that sounds. And that's where this name would have come from. I mean, that name that you gave, is it Cruz? Well, we'll see it when we go through the reports. But we're just going through these right now. So I don't know what the rest of it says. So I don't want to speak about whatever like any other reports say just now, because I haven't gotten to those. Okay, so now we have 11/28/22, and we still have the 3 subjects, the 1 suspect that's completely redacted. And we go down and see that they've now taken a blood swab from the entry hallway wall and kitchen wall, 2 additional blood swabs, and then this is where the glove was submitted that was found at the crime scene. Now here we have 12/5/22, and this first submission that is for this date does not have Bryan's name on it. We have the blank suspects, and then these blanked out names and the victims' names. We have swab, all from the inside of someone's face, and then a DNA swab from something, and it doesn't say from what. So if this was from the knife sheath, there would be no reason for this to be redacted. No reason whatsoever. So now we have 12/5/2022 again. And this is where Bryan Kohberger's name pops up on here. And I say that it would have had to have been from this one. Because, and just follow me on my reasoning, because I'm not saying that I know that this is 100% how this is working, but this is what it looks like to me. I'm saying that it would have had to have come from whatever was previous, because when they first get the knife sheath, they don't have a suspect DNA or anything like that yet. So they don't have a suspect on here as they're getting the knife sheath. After they've received the knife sheath, the very next time they get information, they've now added a blanked out suspect to it. So it looks like it'd be whatever came in from the previous date, they can now add to the inventory list for the next date. That's just how it looks to me. That could be wrong. I'm just going off of a pattern that I'm seeing. I'm not saying that I'm 100,000% right. Okay. It's just how it looks. So why is there still a redacted suspect name? Why is there still a redacted suspect name and it's listed above Bryan's name? I don't understand this right here. I just don't. I'm going to need them to explain it to me, because I can only, like I said, think of two things. Either they've been dishonest for some reason, and why. Like if you really were onto the dude before the freaking feds had to take over because y'all suck at your jobs, why aren't you coming out and taking some sort of responsibility for actually having his name, instead of having one of your ex-cops come out and tell a lie and remove the FBI's responsibility from the IGG whatsoever? Because that was the entire narrative. I don't understand. Like, if y'all really had his name beforehand and y'all were the ones who really figured this out, instead of letting us sit around and call you inept and incapable and taking the feds completely out like some mystery fucking did all this, then why? I don't get it. And that's why I brought back up the rule. That's why I brought back up the ICR rule that leaves in the co-defendant, because that's what it reminds me of. Plus the fact that there's no way this is a one-man job regardless. They didn't have anything about his dad's DNA until like a couple of days before Christmas. No, Payne said in his testimony in January, the first time they heard Bryan Kohberger's name was December the 19th. They then all had a Microsoft team meeting to where the genealogy tree was shown on the screen the next day on the 20th. And I believe the 20th is also the day that Chief Fry actually called Jenkins over at Pullman and told him that he needed to come in and talk to them. So this is confusing to me. Why are we still seeing a freaking redacted ass name right above Bryan's? Yeah. This is insane to me. But also notice that we've got like a whole bunch more people now added on to stuff too. Like now we have a lot of names. All the subjects from all the different things are now being added onto here as just people that they were testing stuff for. And then, of course, the victims' names. But look at this list. Is this the big list? I thought there was a big list somewhere. Maybe that's the one that we just went through. Yeah. Yeah, because when his name gets introduced to the actual name list, there's a bunch of unknowns also added at the same time. Just like different people. It's just strange. It's just really strange to me. So in this one where his name shows up, it shows that a cheek swab, another swab was submitted, another cheek swab, 2 swabs from something else, and then another cheek swab. But in none of this does it say any other part about the sheath, like anything additional. No, because they had the sheath at this time. ISP still had the sheath at this time. They do show where everything was sent back. I don't know the date off the top of my head. I did see it as I was skimming through, though. I think we'll maybe see it later. Or maybe it was in the like index up there. I can't remember the exact date, though. So then we have another submission on 12/5/2022. And we still have blank suspect at the top of this one and a whole bunch of other stuff redacted. Then we have 12/13/2022. Blank suspect. So see how Bryan Kohberger's name is just on the one from 12/5 so far? His name shows up again here in a second. But so far, let's go back up. These documents make no sense. This is the first time he shows up right here. For 12/5/22, date received, evidence set received, 12/5/2022. There's his name. Same receipt. See, it says page 3 of 5. Now we have 4 of 5. What is this about? With the dashes and then like nothing even here to redact. Okay. Same receipt. Okay, 5 of 5. Now new receipt, 12/5/22. But notice here, his name doesn't show up on this one. It's just the redacted person's name. After his name's already been listed once. That's stupid. That doesn't even make sense. Now we have 12/13/22. And it's the same way. The exact same way. Page 3 of 5. All the different things. And see, look right here. They were doing all kinds of processing from things still. Look at all these cheek swabs they took. That's crazy. Empty beer cans, backpack found in living room, held full beer cans. Please also test for DNA. Empty beer can found on vanity. Empty beer can found on vanity. What date is this one? Now we're on 12/23/22. Now this would have been after. What was this date again? So this was 12/13, and they didn't submit anything else for another 10 days. 12/23/22. So this would have been after they would have gotten the 12/19 phone call. And they still don't have Bryan's name listed on this one either. I'm guessing because there was nothing in this set that had anything to do with him. Here's the blue powder. This is the one that Lady Di said, and there's a further document that says that it is what people assumed it was. Not the Fent one, but the other crushed up blue powder. What date is this? 12/27/22. Blanked out suspects. So there's still somebody on here that they're just like, even after they have Bryan Kohberger's name, they still have somebody that they're testing stuff for that they're considering a suspect, is what this looks like to me. Stairwell already tested positive. Blood swab from half wall already tested positive. Blood swab from second floor study table already tested positive. Swab from second floor outside bedroom already tested positive. Swab from smear on living room table already positive. Swab from edge of third floor door already positive. Yeah, I remember that the two doors of the two crime scene rooms had some sort of, was it left or right? I don't remember what they said, but it was like shoulder width to Talbot, a smear. So then we have swab from floor stain inside doorway W, bedroom marker R, already positive. Okay. So now we have 12/28/22. We're still pre-arrest. And we still have somebody that's not Bryan Kohberger with stuff being tested for and looked for when it comes to a suspect. Why do we have a redacted suspect name? Band-Aids from Pennsylvania. Straw from Blakesley, Pennsylvania. Where the frick is Blakesley, Pennsylvania? That's not where they live. What the frick frack? I don't know that place. That's not where the CVS is either. As far as I understand, that's not where the CVS is. So how far is this from the Poconos area? Okay. So this is like a 20-ish minute drive. This is like the area where his parents live, over here somewhere. I didn't put their exact address in, just like the Poconos Mountains area, generalized. And then this is Blakesley. I don't believe this is where the CVS is. It says they took 2 Band-Aids from here, a straw, 2 pink earplugs, lollipop sticks and wrappers, nail clippers, and 8 earplugs. Used napkins. This sounds like it's their trash that they took. Yeah, let me look at the town specifically, Albrightsville. Even farther! No, it's not. I'm dumb. It just looked farther because it moved. It's 13 minutes. 13 minutes. From Blakesley to Albrightsville. Is this like where the trash... That's what I was about to say. Is this where the trash company actually is? This must be where the dump is then. Because the story is that they had a trash truck actually like pull through there like normal trash. And then as it drove out, they did their thing. Let me check. Let me see. Is there a trash dump in Blakesley? Yeah. The Monroe County Municipal Waste Management Authority. Okay, so it's labeled Blakesley because it's their trash, but they got it from... They have to put the actual location in here, I guess. So yeah, okay, well that answers that. We needed to look it up and find out for sure because I'm like, why are you getting all these things from another location? That doesn't even make any sense. Okay, that makes sense. So it wasn't just like right outside the neighborhood. They met them at the waste management company, then it seems like. That's a little bit different. Okay, so now we have 1/6/23. This is after arrest. And now look at this crap right here that they left this in here like this. Kohberger. They still have a suspect. They still have a blanked out suspect. Then they have Kohberger's name finally re-added to a document for the first time in how many dates? But then also they have him listed in here with his name spelled incorrectly. Now I have gone in there just for shits and giggles and tried to find where this is actually a name. And all it wants to do is correct my spelling. And I'm not going to dig any further than that because how can this just not be a typo? But they still have this piece up here. This right here is what is still throwing me off too. Because we know his middle name is Christopher. But why the frick is this even in here? Dumb. So then what they took in here was prints. And look, the person's prints is not Bryan Kohberger's because it's blanked out for comparison only. For what? Whose prints do you need? The parents maybe for the trash? But this looks like it's like for the house, I guess. In the vehicle. So these must be his parents' prints, and they're redacting his parents' names. I guess that makes sense. Okay. Possible hair found inside shower drain, tested presumptive positive for blood. Red counter swab tested positive presumptive for blood. Cutting. Okay, this is from his apartment. So whose prints are you taking for comparison that you're redacting for stuff from his apartment and his own car? Mattress pad, seat cover cushion from vehicle, seat back collected from vehicle, section of headliner near visor collected from vehicle, seatbelt boot collected, swab from inside Latah County Jail. So this is like different dates of different times all put together in like one thing that they sent over. And then prints from who for comparison? Who are you having to compare? And why is it redacted? This is Bryan Kohberger stuff. Whose prints are you redacting? 2/7/23. We still have a damn suspect, a redacted suspect name. Yeah, that's a new one. I don't know where that came from because I don't remember hearing that from anything ever before. And when it came from his apartment stuff, I don't remember it saying that that was anything there either. So I actually don't know what this is. This stuff right here was from his apartment. That's why like I am kind of confused about this one. We do know that they found something on a counter at the house, but we also know that they cut his pillowcase at his apartment. So it looks like this is just like a dump, like a bunch of random. That's why the labels are not like really correct, except for like suspect vehicle, suspect vehicle, suspect vehicle. So yeah, I don't know. This is I don't know what this is. I'm guessing this is probably from the house, but we can only assume that. So I don't know. So whose prints are these? And what drain is this? From where? From his parents' house? From King Road? From his apartment? We saw nothing about this in his apartment. And I've never heard anything about bloody hair in the drain. So yeah, good point. I'm glad that you recaught that because it just looked like it was going to be like stuff we've seen before, but you're right. That is different. But this, we definitely know they talked about this at King Road, and this is from like him. This is part of the DNA stuff that Don Daniels misplaced for 10 days and didn't tell Ann Taylor about, was that cutting from a pillowcase. That again was like no connection to anybody whatsoever, but it was positive for blood. Okay, see again. 2/7/23. And we still have somebody else as a suspect above Bryan Kohberger's name with stuff being tested for. Floor mat from floor of suspect vehicle, seatbelt from suspect vehicle. And then no exam. They didn't even test it. They didn't even test the guy that they think is the suspect. They didn't test the floor mats. You would think out of all of the things, they would test the damn floor mats. What? Oh my God. That is wild to me. I'm sorry. That is insane. That is insane. They didn't test. Oh my God. They didn't test everything else either. So you oh, what the frick what did you do? OMF and Jeebus. Brake pedal, gas pedal, black gloves from desk chair inside suspect's home in room K. Black gloves from closet shelf, room K, suspect's parents' home. Black gloves from closet shelf, room K, suspect's parents' house. 2 pair of gloves and knit hat from top of dryer, suspect's house. Hyundai key fob removed from suspect's car ring. I mean, why are you not testing that? How else was he going to start his car if y'all think that he went murdery and then jumped right in it 3 seconds later? Why wouldn't you have the car fob tested? Bro, this has got to be the Truman Show. I was just telling my buddy earlier, like, so much of this shit is orchestrated everywhere you go, and every aspect of everything that is life, it is orchestrated and bullshit. This is wild. Like, y'all already know, like, where I'm at. I'm open-minded as shit, but whenever I'm seeing, like, y'all didn't even test anything, what? Trace material on floor mat from Bryan Kohberger's vehicle. No exam requested. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I'm glad that I still have a little bit of my margarita stuff that I was sipping on after our live last night, because I'm going to need it again. What is happening? Why would you not test anything important like this? I am shooketh. Oh my God. The date was like 2/7. Let's go back up. Go back. 2/7/23. All that moving around and stuff, I don't see how they could have done it another time. Like, how are you going to have a grand jury and you're not examining a damn thing? You're not doing a test on anything. How for both sides? How can the defense really have everything that they need? And then how can the state really have everything that they need if they're not even doing it? That's my problem. That's my problem. Thank you for joining, Dottie. Thank you. Thank you for the 2, Witchy. Were any of the wounds stabbed, like the wounds tested? I'm sure so. I haven't seen those reports yet. There's so many in here. I haven't even had the chance to really like scroll through stuff. I just haven't. I just haven't. I'm going to sit down tonight and go through as many as we can so I can sort of get like the next few nights sectioned out, because this does seem a little bit more organized. All of these evidence submission receipts are all like in one thing as far as I can tell so far. And I've scrolled up a bunch from the bottom and scrolled down a bunch from the top, and I haven't seen any other ones, but there could be some in there somewhere. I'm hoping these are all of them, but with all of these, they didn't examine nothing. They didn't do nothing. They didn't do this. I'm really questioning a lot of stuff. The Goncalveses put a GoFundMe up in the very, very beginning for a private investigator. The private investigator is the one who most likely is the one who got them the 156 footage that we're being told doesn't exist. And I have not gotten a response back either, guys. From the email that I said that I wrote to Amber over at the FOIA office at MPD with the report about how much they had from the 13th to the 17th and it really being 1255, not 225. I haven't gotten a response back on that yet, about why those very important, intricately important dates that they apparently do very much have are not added to what they're considering the entirety of 11/12. I haven't gotten a response back, but I did just like send it not long ago. So we're still waiting on that. But the detective is the one who created the Facebook page, then got into it with the Goncalveses. I don't remember what the argument was about. I'm honestly probably going to go back and try to figure it out, because I find it important if they went through and got a whole bunch of evidence and then suddenly like they're just not working together. I remember hearing a little bit about it in the beginning, but it wasn't relevant to me at the time. And I might not even do a video about it. If I don't find it relevant to the case, or if I don't find anything like kind of sketchy about it, I'm not even going to tell you guys about it, because it's not important. But I am going to go in and try to like figure it out myself and find out what the issue was, especially if this person is the one responsible for getting them that footage that now we're being told that the cops don't have as evidence, like actually in their stuff. So I don't know. We're still waiting on a lot of things here. This is just wild to me that they just didn't even bother with so many things. Thank you for the 199, Tammy. Brent's mom / stepdad own a leather company in Lewiston. Kopakos? I didn't know that. I never really dug really too deep into him because I wanted to tread carefully because of the situation with his military history and the mental illness and stuff, and there's just a lot there. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll look at it and see. But I know we need to put all the coincidences and different questions and stuff together, but yeah. Okay, so now we move on to 3/3/23. So this is pretty much in between arrest and grand jury right here. And they have Bryan's name on it, and still somebody else Somebody else still as a redacted suspect. Swab from gas brake pedal removed. 70 swabs for lab submission. Swab of gear shift removed from 70 swabs. No exam requested. Well, if the freaking laboratory isn't requesting, like, isn't going to be testing it, then what were they even swabbing it for? Belt buckle, gas and trunk release, radio controls, stains on objects in west bedroom on floor 2, markers T and U. I guess that's back at the house. See how it's like back and forth? Stain on inner edge of east bedroom near east bedroom door on floor 3, marker X. Submitted swab of stain on trash can in west bedroom. Yeah, this is stuff like from the house. Submitted swab of stain on chair in west bedroom. DNA extracts from item 125.1, 0.2, and 126. Okay, this is page 68. I need to write this down. So I'm about to go back up to the index. I'm going to write it on my finger. Okay. I want to go back up to the index. It was 125.1. Crap. Oh, I thought it was going to give me some sort of example. I forgot how vague these are. So this is for these 3 right here. Suspected biological staining. That's what this is for. Put this back over. Okay. No exam though. So you have biologics somewhere and you're not testing them. That exactly. No, you know what? When my kids were really young and I worked nights and I had to take like little spurts of naps, I would go in we would go in my bedroom and we'd lay down on the bed and I'd put on their favorite show. I'd lock the door and I'd give them washable markers and I would set my alarm for 30 minutes and take like little like spurt naps and just let them like draw all over my legs and my arms and stuff because it was washable. I was going to take a shower before work. But that's how I got to take like little naps while I was working late whenever they were little bitty toddlers. Lock them in my room, put on their favorite show and give them markers right all over me while I take a nap. It worked. It really worked. So I got through a lot of night shifts, sleeping in and out. Okay, let's go this way. 4/14/23. We have, again, still, they haven't removed it. They're probably never going to freaking remove it. Suspect name, again, right before Bryan, somebody else. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Elimination prints with no exam requested. That's it. Okay, that's it. That's literally it. Okay, now we have 5/10/23. This is what, a week before the grand jury? Let's see, what was the exact grand jury date? I think it was the 17th. Grand jury date for Bryan Kohberger. Was it the 17th? I want to say it was the 17th. Would you just show me the damn date so I can say if I'm right or wrong? It's not just like popping up. I ask grand jury date, Bryan Kohberger. Jesus Christ. When was Bryan Kohberger indicted? In 2023. It just says the arraignment hearing was on the 22nd. So I'm going to say that it was the 17th. That sounds like it's accurate. That sounds accurate. Okay. So this would have been a week before the grand jury. And they still have a suspect above Bryan's name. And now we have turn signal assembly, gear shift knob, and boot removed from the suspect vehicle. That's it. But at this point, I have to ask, which suspect's vehicle? Because y'all could be hiding an entire person, an entire car. You could literally be hiding from us an entire portion of this investigation if they really, really wanted to. They really could. So now I'm just going to be a smartass and say, which suspect's car? This is dumb. Okay, now this is after the grand jury. 6/14/23. Bro, it looks like it, doesn't it? she made $100,000 being a little liar. So whatever. Okay. June 14th, 2023. Still with the name above Bryan Kohberger's name. Still. And we have pink blanket. Okay, convenient. We're talking about Dylan right now. Interesting. Pink blanket with red hearts, which tested presumptive positive for proteins using blue star. Area that luminesced is indicated with a Sharpie. Please test for blood. We went over the pictures of that one last night. I don't have the page numbers off the top of my head. Somebody else put them down in the chat that was able to go through this really quickly. And it looked like all of the spots on the pink blanket, except for one in the very, very, very top corner, were negative for protein, negative for blood, negative, but the one spot was positive. Now, it did say that it matched somebody whose card was on file and the name is redacted. So considering that it was Dylan's blanket that we saw in the pictures that we did see from inside of her room, so we're assuming it's the same blanket. We're assuming it's the same pink blanket with the red hearts. It could be more than one. It's a house full of girls. But we saw it on Dylan's freaking bed, okay? They say it matches a blood card. The name was redacted. One can only assume it's Dylan's blood. But then one also has to question why it's there, I guess, is pretty much like how you can do that. But when it comes to that green jacket, it says it tested presumptive positive for proteins which luminesced using blue star. The thing about that is that in all those pictures where they did test it for blood, they're all negatives. So while it might be something biological, it's not blood. It's not blood. Now, it does look like it's been sitting somewhere where it gets like really humid because it has like those really like spotty looking like mildewy spots. Like I've gone and like pulled stuff out of like an old like storage bin that has like old clothes in it from like way back somewhere, like in some garage or wherever somewhere where I've got old stuff and pulled stuff out and it has like those little dots of like mildew from it being in a humid area for too much. That's pretty much what that green jacket looks like. But again, it also said negative for stuff, so it's got biologics on it, but it wasn't blood, but there was the exact little spot of blood on the top corner of the pink blanket with the red hearts. Okay. Now we're on 3/29/24. Did we just jump a year? What was this date? So we went from 6/14/23 and we're jumping to 3/29/24. So in like 9 months, they didn't submit anything for 9 months. That's crazy. Okay. Oh my God. We have done let go of a preliminary hearing. We have done waived our right to a speedy trial. We have done all these things, and we still have somebody else's freaking name above Bryan Kohberger's name. And we've seen them make changes. We saw them at one point put a name in that was Bryan's, that was misspelled. We've seen them remove Bryan's name from before the other, like from in between the 12-5 to like these other documents from his arrest. We've seen them go in and change things. So what's happening here? 10 months, Anna? Was Hunter C involved and that's why they are weird? I don't know. I know that they were sure out of the country hella fast, both him and his girlfriend. I know that it's very strange that a lot of people are not really putting a lot of emphasis on their relationship the way that they wanted us to believe that they were these like besties. There's a lot of just misconception, I think, there. It's also really strange to me that Hunter like beeline to Xana, knew Xana first from stuff that I've seen. I don't know. I know that there was a knife on the floor that Emily saw, and then suddenly there's a knife in Hunter's hand. And he sure made a beeline to that house before he was even asked to go over there. I don't know. I don't know if involved or knows the truth. But I feel like at this point, if you're related to like frats whatsoever in this situation, somebody had to have like looked real iffy to you. They had to have. I don't know. I don't really feel like we've got enough to really point at a specific person. My problem is more with the way that the evidence sits, the way that there's no answers to a lot of things, the way that there's a lot of lies when there shouldn't be lies. Example, what we're looking at right now. If they really had Bryan Kohberger's name on 12/5, why are we being told they didn't know his name until 12/19? If his name is on all these documents for all these things that they tested before 12/19, why are we not seeing that being reflected in court? Why are we being told a false narrative for how he was found? That doesn't make sense. Why is there so many secrets? Why did the university take over so quickly? Why did the frat completely just shut down, have cops around them? Why did the Chapins go in and completely hang out with them overnight, shut down everybody's phones, and do some sort of stay-in, and they control the narrative for a majority of the things that are going on here? If there wasn't all of this other crazy shit going on, it would maybe be a lot easier to sort of like fall in line, I guess. But then when you have the prosecution come out and say that they can't answer any of your questions, they can't directly connect him to that house, they can't say that he was actually stalking them, they can't give you answers to anything, they don't have a murder weapon, they didn't even bother to ask the man why. They want us to believe all of this. I can't get behind any of that consciously. But I also can't really sit here and be like, that person, that person, that person, and that person. You cannot do this from being on this side of things. You can have questions. You can be like, that behavior is really shady. I don't like it. And it just is what it is. I don't think that story coming from that guy is accurate because this says this in black and white and something doesn't seem right. You can have those questions. I still question if there was something going on with the Davids, especially now that we see just how like in the brain messed up David B really is. You know, if you know, because, you know, the Charlie Kirk thing that we went over here, he's a little sadistic. So I don't know. They hid the fact that he was driving around. They hid the fact that he was a sober bro in the area at 4:00 in the morning. His story goes from driving around to walking across the lower 40. Like, why do we not have the truth about you and your story? There's too many things. Two things. Too many things. Hey, who are you talking about? Huh? It also was not Jack's apartment. Blood was in. Yes, it was. There was blood in Jack's apartment, and there was blood in Jack Decor's house. That's in a doc. That's in the docs. That's in the docs. All right, let's continue after my rant now. Okay, what date was this again? This was 3/29/24. Yeah, and again, they still have somebody else above Bryan's name. 2 exemplars BTN for comparison only. What does BTN mean? I don't know what BTN means. Okay, now we have 6/21/24. And we still have somebody else above Bryan Kohberger's name. Stilly. And then we have 3 exemplars sent in here. 9/11/24. Still have somebody else above Bryan Kohberger's name. Item 913, item 918. All right, we're on page 93. Let's see if I can see what those are. Oh, we don't even have those numbers on here. This stuff starts like this stuff ends at 139, so it must be maybe Moscow's. Maybe. Oh, I think I went up too many pages. Yeah, 93. Maybe that's Moscow's. Because this ends at 150 something. All right. 6/4/25. This year. Right before the plea, I think. And they still have somebody's name above Bryan Kohberger's name. as of this year, right before the plea. What was the date? No, I went too far. 6/4/25. 6/4/25. We read the documents, broskies. We know what it says. It says so in the reports, exactly what everyone in the chat's telling you. That Jack Showalter's house apartment had blood in it, that they were called in there after the maintenance guy asked them to go in because Jack's door originally was tested and it didn't have any blood on the door. And then there's also a report of there being blood inside Jack Jacor's house. That's actually what it says in the documents. Like, don't come in here yelling and screaming and getting mad. We know what the documents say. We went over them. No, it gave locations. We know, like we know whose apartment it was based off of what they said. So don't come in here yelling if you don't have like proof about stuff. I think he does have I think he has depression, because they do have information in the MPD documents that they did have something come in from him to that office over there. And he was basically saying that his mental health had taken like a really drastic decline. And there was like a date that an email was submitted, and then the person called him the next day and asked him like questions to see like if he needed any support stuff or anything like that. And they just keep alluding to how this guy was like really sad. Stuff about his dog. And then some of the stuff is also mentioned in the interview. It's also mentioned in the interview. I mean, yeah, well, all you have to do is put the document number instead of yelling and screaming like a psychopath. Like, say, MPD supplement, ISP number. I mean, it's not hard. Jesus Christ. 2 months. 2 months of shenanigans. 2 months of shenanigans. Okay. Again, we're on 6/4/2025, and we still have somebody else's name blanked out right above Bryan Kohberger's name. Isn't that insane? Right before the plea deal. Weeks before the plea deal. Now, right here, when it's these prints, who was printed in May of 2025? Jack Jacor. And that's whose prints this is. That was sent over June 2025. Jack's prints. Dot is a liar. We are not going to do this. Do not come in here talking about Dot like she is legitimate. And I'm not giving anybody any leeway anymore, because the truth has been out there for 2 years. Dot is a fake. She said so herself. And I'm not going to argue anything about Dot's fake ass. It's just plain and simple. I don't give a shit what she said. I don't care. All right. Yeah, that's the end of the forensic receipts. That's what I wanted to go over with you guys in this live, because they have Bryan Kohberger's name on these damn things, with somebody else's name still redacted, still considered a suspect right above his. And that shit don't make no sense. That shit makes no sense. None. And I don't know what to think about it. We'll do a live separately about these kind of like handwritten note type things. I know that, you know what's crazy, guys? Plunder. I'm going to shit talk for a second because I find this behavior sick. We're done anyway. Plunder posted Molly's interview, right? And she said that it was courtesy of Gray Hughes. Okay, cool. We know they share stuff. But then she also got like the 4-page PDF that shows like a diagram of the way that the bodies were. Gray Hughes had that too on his channel, and she got that from him, right? Which is fine. Like, that's not what I'm like talking shit about. This is what I'm about to talk shit about. If you go and look at her channel and you click where she says like you can download it here, she's charging people on her Patreon $11 per download, like per person, to go on her Patreon and download the interview and the 4 pages that she did not get herself that Gray Hughes got. She's charging people $11 for that. I could never be that kind of person. Like, what? That's insane. Insane. Wild. Yeah, you know what I did? I went to Greg Hughes' video and took some freaking screenshots. Kiss my ass, Hughes. Kiss all of my ass. That's what I did. For free. Took 30 seconds. God damn. Wild. I will see you guys in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and roll this out. Please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. Oh, welcome, Michelle. I had to acknowledge that one before closing it out. Welcome. I will see you guys later. Bye.